The sky above Earth was quiet, the kind of silence that felt heavy, like the calm before a storm. On the ground, everything seemed normal. People were going about their daily lives, unaware of the coming chaos. In the Nevada desert, a group of Marines were in the middle of a standard training exercise. Sergeant Alan Mitchell stood at the front, scanning his team as they moved through their drills. The sun was starting to set, casting long shadows across the dry, cracked earth. The air was thick with heat, the kind that made it feel like the ground itself was alive. But there was something else in the air, something that didn't belong. Mitchell couldn't put his finger on it, but he felt it deep in his gut. A strange unease. It wasn't the usual tension that came before a battle. It was something more. He watched his team move in perfect formation. Their movements were sharp, precise, trained. They were ready for anything, or so they thought. What they didn't know was that the world was about to change. The calmness they felt was a lie, a mask hiding the storm that was about to rip through their lives. The world had been anticipating the arrival of the aliens for years. Governments, military leaders, scientists. Everyone knew they were out there, in the dark reaches of space. The signals had been coming in for years. First, strange radio transmissions, then unexplainable images from distant probes. It was all building to something. But despite the warnings, the global response had been slow. Humans, divided by their petty conflicts and weak alliances, hadn't been able to prepare properly. Some countries had tried to prepare, but the threat seemed so distant, so unreal, that many thought the invaders would never come. But as Mitchell stood there, looking out over the barren desert, he knew in his heart that something was different today. It wasn't just the weather. It wasn't just a bad feeling. It was real. It was happening. A loud beep suddenly came through his radio. Mitchell's hand shot out, grabbing the receiver. "This is Sergeant Mitchell. Go ahead," he said, his voice steady, despite the unease twisting in his chest. "Sergeant, this is command. We have confirmation. Hostile ships entering Earth's orbit," the voice on the other end said, sharp and clear. Mitchell's stomach dropped. "What?" he muttered under his breath, but it was no use. He knew exactly what it meant. The aliens were here. The invasion had begun. He quickly turned to his squad. His men, all trained soldiers, were waiting for orders. Mitchell could see the shock in their eyes, but there was no time for hesitation. "Listen up," he barked, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had been through countless battles. "This is not a drill. We've got hostile ships in orbit. We don't know how many. We need to move. Now." Without a word, the soldiers snapped into action. They knew the drill, even if they didn't fully understand what was going on. Mitchell's heart raced as he quickly ran through the steps in his mind. He'd trained for something like this, sure, but it was always theoretical. The reality was far worse. He and his squad mounted their vehicles and sped out of the desert, heading towards the nearest military base. As they drove, Mitchell couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just the beginning of a battle, it was the beginning of a war. A war unlike any Earth had ever seen. He glanced at the sky, but there was nothing to see yet. The stars were still distant, cold, and unmoving. But he knew that in a matter of hours, that sky would be filled with alien ships, ships that had traveled across galaxies to reach Earth. Back at the base, the military was scrambling into action. Mitchell's squad arrived just as the first reports came in. The alien ships weren't just entering Earth's orbit. They were already beginning their assault. The reports showed large energy blasts that obliterated outer defense satellites and weapons platforms. It was as if they had been waiting, watching, biding their time for the perfect moment to strike. They were fast, efficient, and ruthless. Mitchell stepped into the command center. His boots clicked against the metal floor as he approached the map table. The room was filled with officers, all scanning their monitors, their faces tense. The air was thick with the weight of the moment. Everyone was waiting for orders, but no one knew what to do. How do you fight an enemy you know so little about? How do you prepare for a war when the first strike has already taken you off guard? A voice broke through the chaos. Sergeant Mitchell. Lieutenant Clark called from across the room. We need to start preparing our counteroffensive. We have limited time. Mitchell's gaze was fixed on the map, his mind working fast. There was no room for mistakes. What do we know about their weapon systems? He asked. He didn't want to hear the answer, but he had to. Nothing yet, Clark replied. They've disabled our outer satellites. We have no eyes on them. Their ships are unlike anything we've seen before. Mitchell clenched his fists. They didn't have the luxury of time. The aliens were already attacking their outer defenses, and if they didn't act fast, Earth would fall before they even had a chance to fight back. All right, Mitchell said, his voice calm but firm. We don't know their weaknesses yet, but we do know one thing. We can't let them think we're helpless. We fight back, and we do it fast. Mitchell's squad was already preparing for their first mission. They'd face the unknown, but there was one thing Mitchell knew for sure. Humanity was about to show the aliens what they were made of. The storm was coming, and they were ready to face it head-on. The first wave of the alien assault hit Earth faster than anyone had anticipated. The skies above major cities darkened as alien ships broke through Earth's atmosphere like streaks of fire, leaving burning trails in the sky. Within minutes, what had seemed like an impossible reality became undeniable. The invasion was real. The aliens were here, and humanity, unprepared for this scale of attack, was about to learn what it meant to be truly vulnerable. Sergeant Mitchell's team had barely gotten their bearings before the news began flooding in. Cities like New York, Paris, and Tokyo were under attack. Whole districts were already in ruins, hit by powerful energy blasts from the alien ships that hovered above. The earth trembled with each strike, buildings crumbling to the ground like toys under a child's hand. There was no warning, no time to regroup. Humanity was caught off guard, completely unprepared for an assault of this magnitude. The alien ships were unlike anything the humans had ever seen, sleek, silent, and deadly. Their weapons were devastating, reducing the Earth's most advanced defense systems to mere rubble. Mitchell stood on the balcony of the command center, watching the chaos unfold on the screens below. His mind raced, trying to find a plan, some way to fight back against an enemy that already seemed to have the upper hand. There were no defenses left. Earth's satellites had been disabled, leaving humanity blind to the movements of the enemy. They were cut off, isolated, and vulnerable. And worse, there was no telling how many ships were out there or what their full capabilities were. Sergeant Mitchell, a voice called from behind. It was Lieutenant Clark, looking frantic but trying to stay calm. We've lost all communication with the outer defense stations. The satellites are down. We have no eyes on the enemy. Mitchell turned around slowly, his face stone cold. He had been preparing for something like this for years, but nothing could have truly prepared him for the reality of the situation. What do we know about their forces? He asked, his voice firm, though his mind was racing with worry. We don't know much yet, Clark replied. But based on the initial reports, their energy weapons are far more advanced than ours. We've already lost major defense sites. Our anti-aircraft missiles don't even reach their ships. We're being completely overwhelmed. His voice cracked a little as he said the last part, though he quickly tried to recover. All right, Mitchell said, running a hand over his face. We need to pull back. Prepare for emergency retreat. Tell everyone to get to the underground bunkers. I'll contact General Harris and let him know we need to regroup. He was about to turn and walk toward the communications station when the sound of another explosion shook the ground beneath them. The building's walls trembled, and Mitchell's soldiers instinctively reached for their weapons. What the hell was that? One of them muttered. The comms officer at the console went pale. Sir, she said urgently, it's the Capitol. Washington, D.C. has just been hit. Hard. The White House is gone. Mitchell felt a chill run down his spine. That was it. If they hit the heart of the United States, there was no place left to hide. The attack wasn't just a military strike. It was a declaration of total war. The aliens weren't here to negotiate. They were here to dominate. And they weren't stopping. "Move," Mitchell shouted, his voice sharp and commanding. "Get everyone to the lower levels. Now." As the team scrambled into action, Mitchell stepped up to the window again, his heart hammering in his chest. The alien ships were still there, hanging in the sky, like predators waiting to strike. He had to admit it. Humanity was on the edge of extinction. But there was one thing the aliens didn't know. They thought they had won. They thought that humanity's divided nature and lack of preparation would make them easy targets. They hadn't reckoned with Earth's true strength. Mitchell didn't know how, but he felt a surge of something deep within him, a kind of raw determination that he had only seen in the most desperate of battles. Humans had been through worse. The aliens didn't know what they were facing. They had underestimated them. They had misjudged the strength of the human spirit. Earth's history was full of war, suffering, and brutality. Humanity had fought countless wars throughout the ages, and through it all, they had never truly broken. They had learned how to survive against all odds. And Mitchell knew that this invasion would be no different. They would fight back. "Sir," Clark's voice snapped him out of his thoughts. "We've received reports from other countries. The global situation is rapidly deteriorating. Governments are collapsing. Military forces are being overwhelmed. We need to act quickly." Mitchell nodded, his mind already shifting into battle mode. "We're not just going to sit here and wait to die," he said firmly. "Tell the other military units to prepare for ground combat. We're going to hit them where it hurts." He turned and looked at his squad, who were now gathered around him. The look in their eyes was one of fear, but also of resolve. They knew what was at stake. They had trained for this. And now it was time to fight. "Get ready," Mitchell said, voice low but full of purpose. "We're going to show these aliens what happens when you underestimate humanity." With that, the team quickly moved out, heading towards the vehicles that would take them to their designated battle zones. There was no time to waste. Every second counted now. As they drove through the ruined streets, Mitchell felt a surge of adrenaline flood through him. This wasn't just about saving Earth. This was about sending a message. A message that humanity wasn't weak, that they weren't going to let their world be destroyed without a fight. The storm had arrived. And it was time for Earth to show the invaders exactly what it meant to face the full wrath of humanity. The battle had only just begun, and already the planet was teetering on the edge of collapse. The alien forces had descended upon Earth with brutal efficiency, leaving little room for resistance. Humanity, caught off guard by the sheer power of the invaders, had already suffered tremendous losses. But Sergeant Mitchell's team was determined to prove that humans were not to be underestimated, even in the face of overwhelming odds. The streets were chaotic. Explosions rocked the city, sending debris flying through the air as civilians scattered in all directions. The alien ships, massive and menacing, hovered above, their weapons disintegrating anything in their path. The once bustling metropolis was now a war zone, its skyline marred by the burning remains of skyscrapers. But despite the devastation, Mitchell's resolve only grew stronger. "Move out, team," he barked, his voice cutting through the noise of the city. The squad had assembled quickly, their faces grim but focused. They were about to enter the heart of the chaos, and there was no turning back now. The fight for Earth was far from over, and Mitchell wasn't going to let humanity go down without making the invaders regret ever stepping foot on this planet. The team piled into their vehicles, and they sped through the ruined streets toward their destination, the alien landing zone. It was a suicide mission, but it was the only chance they had. With Earth's military in shambles, there was no one else left to stop the invasion. Every nation, every government, was crumbling beneath the weight of the alien assault. The remaining human forces had to fight for their very survival, even if it meant sacrificing everything. As they neared the landing zone, Mitchell's heart pounded in his chest. The alien ships were everywhere, swarming the skies like locusts, their weapons raining destruction down upon the streets below. He couldn't help but feel a sense of helplessness, the overwhelming power of the invaders pressing in from all sides. But he knew he couldn't let fear take hold. If he did, then it would be the end. "Sergeant," Lieutenant Clark said, his voice tense, "we're getting reports from the other squads. They're being wiped out. The aliens are too powerful." Mitchell clenched his jaw. He couldn't afford to lose anyone else. "We're not backing down. We've trained for this. Let's show them what we're made of." The squad moved in position, taking cover behind the remnants of a destroyed building. Mitchell peered around the corner, scanning the area for any signs of alien movement. The air was thick with the smell of burning rubble, and the distant sounds of laser fire echoed through the streets. The alien forces were getting closer, but they hadn't seen them yet. This was their chance. "All right, listen up," Mitchell said, his voice steady. "We're going to hit them hard. We got the element of surprise. Move in, neutralize the alien patrols, and take out any weapon systems they have. We need to slow them down long enough for reinforcements to arrive. This is our shot." The team nodded in unison, determination in their eyes. They knew the odds were against them, but they also knew they couldn't let their planet fall without a fight. They had to hold the line, no matter the cost. With a signal from Mitchell, the squad moved out. They crept through the smoke-filled streets, staying low to avoid detection. The alien patrols were on the move, but they hadn't noticed the humans yet. The squad silently eliminated the first few patrols, using stealth and precision to strike fast and hard. One by one, the aliens fell, their bodies hitting the ground with sickening thuds. It was like hunting a predator, only this time, humanity was the predator. But despite their success, it wasn't enough. The alien forces were vast. Their weapons were unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. Energy blasts that disintegrated anything in their path. Mitchell's squad had to be swift. Every move had to be calculated. And the enemy was everywhere. With each step, the aliens seemed to multiply, their ships hovering ominously above, their weapons poised to strike. Suddenly, the ground shook beneath them. A massive explosion sent debris flying, and Mitchell's team was forced to dive for cover. The alien ship responsible hovered overhead, its weapons charging for another blast. The team barely had time to react before the next blast hit, sending a shockwave that knocked several of them off their feet. Mitchell quickly regained his footing, grabbing his rifle. He shouted over the comms, "Everyone, fall back. We need to regroup." But before anyone could move, the unmistakable sound of another ship's engines rumbled in the distance. The air around them grew dense with the hum of alien technology, and the squad found themselves surrounded on all sides. "Sergeant," Clark called out, voice panicked. "We're outnumbered. We're not going to make it." Mitchell clenched his teeth, his mind working quickly. The team was running out of time. The aliens were closing in, and reinforcements were nowhere in sight. They had to fight, had to keep pushing forward. Just as the squad was preparing for a final stand, the sound of a distant roar shook the air. It wasn't the hum of alien engines. It was something else, something human. Through the smoke and chaos, a massive fleet of human dreadnoughts emerged on the horizon, their guns blazing as they charged toward the alien forces. The first wave of Earth's reinforcements had arrived. Mitchell let out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. The tide of battle was shifting. The aliens had underestimated humanity. They thought they had won. But now, Earth's real fight was about to begin. The invaders had no idea what they were about to face. "Let's do this," Mitchell muttered, his voice grim but full of resolve. "We're not going down without a fight." The battle raged on, with Earth's forces now joining the fray. The aliens may have thought they could break humanity, but the true power of Earth's military, its will to fight, had just been unleashed, and it wasn't going to stop until the last alien ship was reduced to nothing but debris in space. The war had only just begun, and humanity was ready. The alien forces had made a grave mistake in underestimating humanity's ability to fight back. They had expected a quick victory, an easy conquest of a species that seemed weak and divided. But they hadn't counted on the fire that burned in the hearts of human soldiers, an unyielding will to survive, no matter the odds. Mitchell's heart pounded as he watched Earth's dreadnoughts charge into battle, their massive weapons firing relentlessly at the alien ships. The sound of explosions filled the air as human firepower collided with the alien forces, the once unbeatable invaders now forced to retreat under the onslaught. The tables had turned. The invaders, so confident just hours ago, were now fighting for their lives. Fire at will, Mitchell ordered, watching as his team followed his command and launched their weapons. The air was filled with the hum of energy blasts and the crackling of laser fire as the human forces tore through the alien ranks. For the first time since the invasion began, Mitchell allowed himself a moment of hope. It wasn't over yet, but for the first time, Earth was fighting back, and it was making a difference. The team moved quickly, advancing alongside the dreadnoughts, taking out any alien forces that dared to resist. Mitchell's mind raced as he took in the scene before him. Every step forward felt like a small victory, but the real battle was still yet to come. The aliens had more ships, more soldiers, and it wasn't clear yet whether Earth's reinforcements could hold their ground. "Sergeant Mitchell," Clark's voice crackled over the comms, breaking his thoughts. "We've got a massive alien cruiser heading toward us. It's bigger than anything we've seen. We need to take it out, or we'll be in serious trouble." Mitchell's eyes narrowed. A cruiser that large would be a serious threat. The dreadnoughts were already engaged in a firefight with smaller alien ships, and the last thing they needed was a colossal warship raining destruction down on them. But they couldn't back down now. Humanity had already proven it had the strength to push back. The aliens had underestimated them once, and they wouldn't make that mistake again. "Where's the cruiser now?" Mitchell asked, already strategizing. "It's about 2 clicks to the northeast," Clark replied. "Moving fast. We'll need air support to have any chance at taking it down." Mitchell didn't hesitate. "Get the coordinates to the Air Force. We'll provide cover on the ground. We take out the smaller ships while the bombers go after the cruiser." His team quickly moved into position, setting up a perimeter around a street corner and preparing for the oncoming alien assault. Mitchell could feel the adrenaline flooding his system, his senses heightened as he scanned the skyline. The warships that had once seemed so invincible now appeared vulnerable. Every alien ship was a target, and every alien soldier a threat to the future of humanity. "Eyes open," he shouted to his squad. "They're coming for us." The team had just enough time to take cover before the alien ships appeared, their dark shapes silhouetted against the smoke-filled sky. The sound of their weapons charging echoed in the distance, and Mitchell could see the faint glow of their energy beams as they took aim. It wasn't long before the first shots began to rain down, the ground shaking with each blast. But the human forces were ready. The ground team took careful aim, hitting alien soldiers with pinpoint accuracy. Each blast was a message to the invaders. Earth was not defenseless. The human soldiers were more than capable of fighting back, of pushing through the horror and chaos that surrounded them. And every alien soldier who fell only fueled the fire that burned within the hearts of Mitchell and his team. "Cover me," Mitchell shouted as he led the charge toward a group of alien soldiers huddled behind a wrecked building. His team fired in unison, suppressing the aliens long enough for Mitchell to close the gap and take them out one by one. His pulse raced, but there was no time to think, no time for hesitation. Every second counted. Meanwhile, the Air Force had arrived, their bombers swooping down to engage the alien cruiser. Mitchell watched in awe as the first round of bombs hit the massive ship, sending an explosion so powerful it rattled the ground beneath his feet. But the cruiser wasn't done yet. It fired back with devastating blasts, knocking out several human air support craft. The battle was far from over. Mitchell's team had to move quickly, pushing forward even as the ground shook with explosions. But their assault was relentless. Every step they took was another victory, another alien ship or soldier neutralized. It was the power of humanity's resilience on full display, fighting with everything they had, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. "Keep pushing forward," Mitchell urged, adrenaline surging. "We've got this." The ground erupted in flames as the alien cruiser took another round of hits, its shields weakening under the onslaught. The alien warships above were losing ground to Earth's renewed counterattack, but Mitchell knew the real test was still to come. Even if they managed to destroy the cruiser, there was still a vast alien fleet out there, a fleet that had been lying in wait, confident that humanity was too weak to fight back. But humanity wasn't weak, and as long as Mitchell's team, along with the rest of Earth's soldiers, were still standing, they would keep fighting. The final push was near. The aliens had underestimated humanity, and now they were starting to realize the truth. Every alien ship destroyed, every fallen soldier, was a reminder. Earth wasn't going down without a fight. And that fight, in the end, would be what won humanity the war. Mitchell gritted his teeth and shouted to his team, "Let's finish this. For Earth." As the battle raged on, Mitchell knew that humanity's spirit would not be broken. The war was far from over, but with each passing moment, Earth's forces grew stronger. The aliens had underestimated them once. They would never make that mistake again. The battle had reached its peak. Earth's forces were no longer retreating. They were pushing forward with relentless force. Mitchell, along with his team, had made their stand. And now they were part of the last wave of human resistance. The alien forces, once so confident, were beginning to falter. Their fleet, while still large, was being whittled down by the concentrated efforts of Earth's remaining military strength. But even as the tides of war seemed to turn in humanity's favor, Mitchell knew that this was just one battle in a much larger, more complex war. Through the haze of smoke and fire, the sky above remained filled with alien ships. The once bright blue sky had turned a dull, oppressive gray. The ground trembled beneath the feet of every soldier as the alien weapons continued their deadly barrage. Despite the relentless assault, Earth's dreadnoughts and ground forces stood firm, refusing to give up even an inch of land. Mitchell's team had survived far longer than anyone had expected. When the invasion first began, they were told it would be a quick fight, that humanity would have no chance against the advanced technology of the alien race. But now, the invaders were learning the truth about humanity. No matter how powerful the enemy was, Earth's soldiers would always find a way to survive, to fight, to win. The squad had managed to take down several alien ships, but the battle was far from won. There was still one more key objective: the alien flagship. If they could take out the flagship, it would disrupt the entire alien fleet, giving humanity its best shot at turning the tide of the war. Mitchell's heart raced as he surveyed the battlefield. The alien forces were still concentrated around the flagship, a massive ship larger than anything humanity had ever seen. Its guns were trained on Earth's forces, and its shields seemed to shrug off every blast fired at it. Even the dreadnoughts, Earth's most powerful ships, were struggling to get through its defenses. "We need to hit the flagship now," Mitchell shouted into his comms. The team had to take this chance. It was their best hope. "Sergeant, we can't get close enough without being shredded," Lieutenant Clark replied, voice tight with anxiety. "We don't have to get close. We take out its defense grid first," Mitchell said, pointing to the enormous ship's power core on the schematics. "We hit the weak spots with everything we've got. We'll need air support for this." Mitchell's words cut through the chaos of battle. The squad moved quickly, their training kicking in. Every second counted. The flagship was already starting to move, its massive engines firing to reposition in space. Time was running out, and if they didn't act fast, the flagship would be able to launch another devastating round of attacks on Earth's forces. "Clark, You and Jensen head for the east side. The rest of you on me. We're going in." Mitchell's voice was a quiet command, but his eyes blazed with purpose. They had to neutralize the flagship's defenses, or Earth's military would have no chance of surviving the battle. This was their moment. There was no turning back. The team made their move, advancing through the debris-ridden streets toward the launch site. Earth's air support had already begun their assault on the flagship's shields, but it wasn't enough. The aliens were retaliating with everything they had, sending a barrage of laser fire and missile strikes in every direction. As the team ran, Mitchell's mind raced. The key to taking down the flagship lay in its energy grid. If they could disable the shields long enough to strike its power core, it would destabilize the entire ship. The alien forces might have technology far superior to Earth's, but they weren't invincible, and humans had something that aliens didn't: determination. Earth's soldiers would fight until there was nothing left, and this battle was no different. They reached their objective, a high-rise building that had been converted into a launch pad for human-made rockets. Mitchell and his team scrambled up the stairs, heading for the rooftop where their payload was waiting. They had a special missile, one that could bypass the alien flagship's shields and hit its core directly. But it had to be launched at the perfect moment. If they missed their shot, the flagship would be able to activate its emergency defenses, and the attack would be meaningless. "Ready?" Mitchell asked, looking each of his soldiers in the eye. He could see the tension on their faces, the fear of what lay ahead. But there was also something else: resolve. They had made it this far, and they were not going to back down now. "On your mark," Clark replied, her hand steady on the launch control. "Fire." The missile shot into the air, cutting through the smoky sky, aimed directly at the alien flagship. Mitchell watched as the rocket soared through the air. Time seemed to slow as it approached the flagship's shield, its path clear. The alien ship's shields flared up, attempting to deflect the missile. But Earth's technology was no slouch either. The missile sliced through the alien shields, and with a tremendous explosion, it hit its target. The flagship's core exploded in a burst of bright light, and the alien ship shuddered, its weapons going dark. The battlefield fell silent for a split second. The air was thick with smoke and debris, and Mitchell dared not believe it. Had they really done it? Then, as if in response, the alien fleet broke apart, their ships beginning to retreat in disarray. Their flagship, the one that had been the keystone of their invasion, was gone. The shockwave from the explosion rippled through space, causing even the alien forces to hesitate. Earth's forces were far from finished. They had just struck a blow that the invaders would never forget. The tides of war had turned. Humanity had not only survived the invasion, but had shown the galaxy that Earth's resolve could never be broken. The alien forces had underestimated humanity once before. They wouldn't make that mistake again. The battle was far from over, but Mitchell knew one thing for sure: Earth's victory had just begun. "Let's finish this," Mitchell said, leading his squad forward. And with that, the fight for Earth's survival continued. The alien fleet was in chaos. For the first time since the invasion had begun, the invaders were retreating. The flagship, once thought indestructible, was now nothing more than a smoking wreck in the distance. The enormous shockwave from the blast had rattled the very core of the alien forces, and their once unbeatable fleet was losing its cohesion. Alien ships that had been relentlessly attacking Earth's defenses were now scrambling, trying to regroup and reorganize. But it was too late. The damage was done. Mitchell and his team, standing in the midst of the destruction, took a collective breath. The air was thick with smoke, and the remnants of alien ships littered the battlefield. The once pristine streets were now a war zone, full of craters, debris, and the wreckage of both human and alien technology. The weight of the battle was heavy in the air, but there was no time to rest. Earth's forces were still outnumbered, and the alien retreat was far from a surrender. They had only delayed the inevitable. They hadn't won yet. "Stay sharp," Mitchell ordered, his voice steady, but filled with urgency. "We've got no time to celebrate. We need to make sure they don't regroup." His squad nodded. Each of them battle-hardened, their eyes burning with determination. They had seen the worst of the fight, but they had also seen the truth. Earth wasn't done yet. The invaders had underestimated humanity's capacity to resist, and that mistake was about to cost them dearly. The battle was far from over. While the flagship was gone, there were still many alien ships in orbit, still too many ground forces to deal with. Earth's military might had scored a significant victory, but it was only one chapter in a much larger war. The alien race would not be so easily defeated. "Mitchell," Clark's voice came through his comms, interrupting his thoughts. "The aliens are pulling back, but it looks like they're setting up a defensive perimeter around the remaining ships. They're regrouping." Mitchell frowned. It was to be expected. The alien forces wouldn't just give up. This was a temporary retreat, and Earth's forces needed to press the advantage while they still could. "Prepare to move out," Mitchell said. "We need to hit them hard before they can organize. Push forward. No mercy." The squad quickly regrouped, rallying around Mitchell as they moved toward the alien positions. The enemy was reorganizing, but humanity's soldiers were faster. They had learned to adapt quickly, to fight with tactics the aliens had never encountered. This was no longer just a battle. It was a war of attrition. Every human victory was another blow to the enemy, and they couldn't afford to slow down now. As they moved forward, Mitchell felt the weight of the moment. They had taken out the flagship, but the battle was still in full swing. Earth's forces were exhausted, but they had proven themselves stronger than anyone had ever believed. The alien fleet had thought it could break them. It had thought humanity would be weak, divided, and helpless. But what the invaders didn't understand was that Earth was built on the spirit of resilience. Humanity had the will to fight, and that would be their greatest weapon. "Enemy incoming," shouted Jensen, his voice urgent. A group of alien warships had emerged from the debris, their weapons powered up and ready to engage. But this time, Earth was ready. The dreadnoughts had closed in, and the air support was in position. "Everyone, take cover," Mitchell ordered as the alien ships fired their first shots. The ground shook as the energy beams collided with the human defenses, sending debris flying through the air. But the humans were prepared. The dreadnoughts fired back with devastating force, the air crackling with the power of their weapons. Mitchell and his squad moved quickly through the battlefield, their boots pounding the ground as they took cover behind fallen wreckage. Alien soldiers appeared, but they were no match for the humans' combat experience. They had trained for this, trained for the worst, and now their preparation was paying off. As the air around them was filled with the sound of laser fire and explosions, Mitchell's thoughts were focused on one thing: victory. Earth had not only survived the invasion, but it had struck back in a way the aliens never saw coming. The humans were relentless, fighting with a tenacity that was now legendary. "Take them down," Mitchell shouted as he and his team launched an assault on the alien positions. Their weapons were precise, cutting down alien soldiers as they moved forward. The enemy was confused, disoriented by the ferocity of humanity's counterattack. The humans, after all, had something the aliens lacked: resolve. They fought for their families, their homes, their planet. The aliens fought for conquest, and that made all the difference. The squad pushed forward, clearing out the alien forces one by one. The battlefield was littered with the fallen, both human and alien. The alien fleet's retreat was in full swing, but it wasn't going to be easy. The aliens were not simply going to surrender. The war was far from over, but Earth's forces had just delivered a blow that they would never forget. "Mitchell," Clark's voice crackled through his comms again. "We've got more incoming. They're coming back in full force. We need to hold them off until reinforcements arrive." Mitchell clenched his jaw. Reinforcements were on their way, but they couldn't afford to wait. They had to press their advantage. "Hold the line," Mitchell ordered, his voice cold with determination. "We're not backing down now. We've already won today. Let's finish it." As they prepared for the next wave of alien forces, Mitchell knew this battle would go down in history. The aliens had underestimated humanity, and they had paid the price. But the war was far from over. Earth had sent a message to the galaxy. They would not go down without a fight. And that message would resonate long after the last shot had been fired. The aliens had made a mistake. They had thought humanity was weak. They had thought Earth would fall. But they were wrong. Now, humanity had proven that even in the darkest of times, they could rise up, united in their will to survive. And this was just the beginning.